Welcome back to another episode of Campfire Horror Stories, where we do some scary stuff and we read you some crazy narrations of stories that are scary. Horror story, Campfire Horror Story. Now, this is a special episode because it is in October, and we're going to be kicking off a new series where we're going to drop a new Campfire Horror Story every Monday of October. And essentially, let's see, how many Mondays is that? Let me see. Calendar's popping off right now. So we're going to be doing this for 4 Mondays. And then maybe on Halloween we'll have a little special. Yes. And so yeah, we're going to read a few stories, and it'll be spooky. October's spooky. Crazy. So yeah, let's get right into it. This first story comes from Ashley Rose Wellman. Distorted warning signals. When I got the first one, I was literally seconds away from stepping onto the plane when a call from unknown blared from my cell phone. It was a ringtone I hadn't heard before, one I was pretty sure hadn't come with the phone. Normally, I wouldn't have stopped to answer it, but I was expecting a call about a job I had interviewed for the previous week. I took a deep breath in and accepted the call. Hello? Do not get on the plane. A woman's voice, garbled and strange, as if her vocal cords had been shredded and she was trying desperately to choke out speech. Despite the unnerving, fractured quality of her voice, her tone was insistent and eerily calm. Then the call ended. I froze. I had always had a slight phobia of air travel, and something about this call just... There's no way I was about to get on a 7-hour flight now. I turned around and headed toward the food court. I'd just get another flight later in the afternoon, I figured. I watched from the airport Starbucks 3 hours later as every TV in the terminal lit up with the crash footage of the plane I should have been on. No survivors. Not a single one. I tried to trace the call. So did the police. But there was nothing to trace. There was no evidence my phone had ever received a call around that time. They analyzed phone records, incoming and outgoing communication to my phone. Nothing. I wasn't making it up. I couldn't have been. That was the only call. Throughout the years, there were few and far between, but always right. And I always listened. Do not go on that blind date tonight. 5 months later, my would-be date was convicted of killing 4 women, all with my hair color and build. Found them in a shallow grave about 250 feet from the diner he offered to take me to. Do not drive to the concert tonight. 18-wheeler lost control and plowed into a line of cars. Every driver crushed, every driver killed. In the stretch of freeway I would have been driving down. No matter if I had gotten a new phone, if I moved across the country, the calls would still come. I could almost feel the presence of whatever it is, watching over me. I imagined being at the bottom of a freezing ocean, still strapped into my coach section plane seat, or being in that mass grave across from the diner, or watching an 18-wheeler skidding towards my car, knowing death was imminent, and I'd get this tightness in my chest. I'd think about how thin that line was, how close I'd gotten. If I hadn't had a job interview I was waiting to hear back from, I'd have never listened to that first call, and that would be it for me. I'd always felt like something was coming for me. But there was always this fractured, warped voice, with these calls that never seemed to exist after I heard them. Self-destructing warning signals, rotting away before my eyes, and I was alive. I had a bad feeling about this cruise. I had planned it as a girls' week out with some of my old friends from college and was looking forward to a week in the tropics in the dead of winter, but part of me could almost sense that the call was coming. Maybe I'd watched Titanic one too many times, but there was a little nagging fear from the start. I hoped it would be fine, but I knew that if something was going to happen, I'd get the call. I'd know. Now a week before I'm set to go on the cruise, after stepping into my apartment, after returning from dinner with a friend, I notice my cell has a message from unknown. They've never had to leave a message before. Haven't checked it all night. Damn it. And I had really wanted to go on that cruise too. Oh well. Not worth whatever horrific fate awaited me in that cold, dark ocean. I click play message and feel my stomach drop as I listen to the voice, sounding horrifically distorted as if it emanates from a throat slashed to ribbons, crackling with more urgency than ever before. I look around my apartment as the voice on the phone repeats the same phrase over and over again. Do not come home from dinner tonight. Do not come home from dinner tonight. Do not come home after dinner tonight. And that concludes our first story of the night. Now we're going to take you to another story, a longer story, and hopefully a scarier, more frightening, more visceral story. How Do You Prove You Are Alive? Written by Adam Davies. I've been dead now for almost 5 weeks. Feels different than you might think. Of course, I'm not really dead. If I were, I wouldn't be able to write this account of what happened to me. But legally, at least, I have been declared dead. Once you're dead, it's surprisingly difficult to prove you're alive. The event that caused my death took place 3 months ago. I was due to catch the late flight from Williamson County Airport to St. Louis. Since leaving the Army, I've worked as an insurance claims investigator, and so my work takes me all over the U.S. I take upwards of 250 flights per year, so I end up in my fair share of tiny regional airports. Williamson is small, but not the smallest I've been to. I got to the airport at 6 o'clock, in plenty of time for the 9 o'clock flight. I grabbed a sandwich at the restaurant, made some calls, and caught up on some admin. The airport was quiet, but there were enough people around to make what happened seem all the stranger. An announcement was made that my flight was delayed, a technical problem to blame. No stranger to delays, I just pulled out my Kindle and started on my latest book. I must have drifted off. Excuse me, sir? What? I was startled into alertness. A very heavily made-up flight attendant stood over me, her overpowering perfume sweet, sticky, and cloying. I'm sorry to trouble you, sir, but we are about to board the St. Louis flight. Great, thanks. I looked around. Everyone else must have already gotten on the plane. The airport was deserted, lights off and shutters down. A ghost town. My watch told me it was 9:03, a lot later than I expected. When I boarded the flight, it was empty, completely empty. I've been on plenty of flights with just 1 or 2 other passengers before, but never a whole plane to myself. Ever officious, the flight attendant showed me to my seat, despite the obvious fact that I could sit anywhere and it wouldn't matter. I hurriedly stowed my jacket and laptop case in the overhead compartment. She went through the farce of her safety demo, while I had my head down reading my book. Takeoff was smooth, but as we reached a certain altitude, I felt the familiar buildup of pressure in my ear and swallowed. Everyone knows the sensation of their ears popping. This was at once the same and yet completely different. Sir, you need to fasten your seatbelt. The words were clear, but the voice was insubstantial. A whisper. I turned around in the direction of the voice, expecting to see the flight attendant behind me. She wasn't there. I leaned into the aisle and I could hear her in the front of the plane. I was only 6 rows back, so I guess I could have heard her voice from here. I was just so sure it came from behind me. I passed it off as some trick of acoustics, my own heartbeat seeming to echo around the empty plane. But when I looked up, the seatbelt sign wasn't on. I shrugged and went back to my book. Cruising was uneventful. The background hum of the air conditioning, combined with my own tiredness and the subtle cabin lighting, giving a sleepy, dreamlike quality to the flight. As we began to descend, my ears popped again. Excuse me, miss, what's happening? A man's voice this time, again clear, but an ethereal whisper. The situation was beginning to feel very weird. I could see that there was no one else on the plane. It's nothing to worry about, sir. If you can just stay calm and keep your seatbelt on, it's just some turbulence. The plane had indeed begun to shake a little as the plane began its descent through the clouds. The voices gained substance. Others joined in. They were noisy now and nervous. If everyone can please remain calm and seated, the flight attendant spoke loudly, trying to talk over the rising cacophony of panicked questions. The whispers turned to screams and weeping pleas. Behind me I could hear a furious prayer, begging a merciless, unhearing God not to let his faithful servant die so young, a life of promise unfulfilled. A mother wept as she tried to calm her crying baby, her soothing words unable to mask the terror in her voice. The pitch and intensity rose as the plane descended, the noise of maelstrom, competing sounds. No! Please. The wheels touched down and the voices quieted. I was hyperventilating, fingers digging painfully into the armrests, my brow slick with sweat. I hurried off the plane toward the deserted airport, eventually slumping into bed in my nameless, faceless hotel room. Lying there in the still and quiet darkness, I rationalized it away. A panic attack, some one-off hit of anxiety about a landing I made dozens of times each month. I managed to keep myself, and I succumbed to the fatigue and slept. In my dreams, I could hear moans of pain and anguish, then silence. The morning brought a sense of normality. I got in the elevator down to breakfast. It's so cold. I whipped around to the faint whisper, already knowing no one was in the lift with me. As I drove to my next appointment, I heard the news about the crash on the radio of the hire car. A Cape Air flight, the morning plane from Williamson County to St. Louis. There were no survivors from the 27 passengers on board. Where are you? The ghostly voice sounded like it came from the seat behind me, not the radio. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing, but I wanted to be sure. I almost veered off the road, straining over my shoulder to look around the rear of the car. It was when I got back to St. Louis Airport that night that I realized I had lost my passport. I didn't need it for the internal flight, as my driving license would suffice, but it was a pain to have lost it. When I got home the next day, I rang the St. Louis hotel. They were sorry, but no passport had been found by housekeeping. I had showed it to board the Williamson flight, so the only other possibility was that I left it on the plane. The phone connected. Hello? I think I may have left my passport on board a flight took 2 days ago. You should be here with us. It's so cold. The whisper came echoing down the line. What? I'm just transferring you to our lost property department, sir, the lady repeated. Hello? Cape Air Lost Property. How can I help you today? Hello, my name is Captain Lionel Sinclair. I think I may have left my passport on one of your flights 2 days ago. Okay, sir. Which flight was that? The 2145 from Williamson to St. Louis, flight number 9K1114. Come and join us. Pardon? I'm just checking our database now, sir. There was a long pause. I could hear the keyboard tapping. Sir, could you please confirm the date of your flight again, please? Wednesday, 21st March, 2145 flight, Williamson to St. Louis, flight number 9K1114. I repeated. I'm sorry, sir, can you please hold? So cold here. You're so warm. Hello? Is this Mr. Sinclair? A new voice asked. Captain Sinclair, I corrected impatiently. I'm so sorry, Captain Sinclair. Can I please just check the details of the flight you think you lost your passport on? Of course, I said, barely trying to hide my frustration while I repeated the details. Captain Sinclair, I'm afraid that flight was canceled on March 21st due to a technical fault with the plane. It's not possible that you were on that flight. Could it have been another day? You should have been with us. I'm not mistaken. I took that flight. I'm looking at my boarding card stub right now. I have a receipt from the restaurant in the Williamson airport and a receipt from the hotel I stayed in St. Louis that same night. That wouldn't be possible unless I took that flight. Unsettled and on edge from the last few days, I was losing my temper with this fool woman. Sir, the evening flight was canceled and the plane that was due to make that flight was involved in a crash the next morning. You may have heard about it on the news. You can't have been on that flight. The call ended after more confusion and flared tempers. The police called to my home the same day. They came expecting to explain to my wife that unfortunately I was registered as a passenger on the flight, that the burnt remnants of my passport were found at the crash site, and that the only unidentified remains from the 27 passengers on board were likely to be mine. Imagine their surprise when they saw I was at home safe and sound. "They know you should be here with us," the whispering voice told me while the officer spoke to my wife and I. Thus, confusion about my status as living or dead began. Dental records of the unidentified victim were a match to mine. Whilst I still have my driver's license, the picture is of an old one, and in the police's view proved nothing. Security camera footage from the airport is no help. I can be clearly seen entering the airport. However, when the announcement about the flight cancellation happens, there is no clear footage of me leaving the airport. I have made various trips to the local police station and was asked to send my ticket stub to Cape Air for verification. They are baffled. The stub is real enough, but they insist the flight never took off. 7 weeks into the mess, a DNA test was authorized. My DNA was on file due to a program I was in during my time in the Army. I was hoping matters would be cleared up quickly. Unfortunately, it was a catastrophic outcome. Both my own and the unidentified body's DNA are a match to my DNA on military record. My own DNA a 95% match, and the cadaver's a 99% match. Because of this DNA evidence, on Tuesday 15th May 2018, I was declared legally dead, and the police immediately opened an investigation into my true identity, the living me, that is. Since being declared dead, the voices have only become clearer, more frequent. Their tone has changed. The living no longer want you. You are free to join us now. We will come for you soon. We want your warmth. It's so cold. I laugh a lot. Laugh to keep me from crying. Keep me sane. The world thinks I am dead, and the voices are in my head. My wife has started to look at me strangely. I can see the doubt between her eyes. It's gone beyond the voices now. I see glimpses and shadows and reflections in mirrors, terrible things, burnt and broken and shivering with cold. Several things trouble me beyond my own sanity. Who is the mysterious charred corpse that has a better genetic claim to my own identity than I do? What do I need to do to prove that I am alive and who I say I am? The things that trouble me most is that my status is as one of the dead. If someone who is legally dead is killed, no crime can be committed or even investigated. The voices keep telling me they intend to come and claim me soon. And that was our second story. Now, this concludes our video. I would like you all to comment in the comment section which story was your favorite. Which one spooked you the most, and which one was crazy. So, that concludes our first Monday of October for our new series. And here at Campfire Horror Stories, we would like to wish you a happy rest of your evening, and good night. We'll see you soon.